His fingers think for themselves. Okay, I'm gonna let these three people come in. I hate that I do this. Oh, there it is. I always leave my glass of hot water somewhere. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a small but lively crowd this morning. People are still parking, they're still coming in the door, so welcome everybody. I invite everybody who's in the lobby to please come into the sanctuary. I am the Reverend Emily Bogus. I am a member of the lead ministry team alongside Dr. Tuli Patel and Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner. My pronouns are she, her, and it is one of my favorite things of the week is to watch people walk in through the doors, greet one another, say hello, hug old friends, and of course, to see all of you online say hello to one another on the chat. And I just want to give a shout out to Adam Gonerman, who is leading our chat this morning. We are coming to you live from Summit, New Jersey, here in our beautiful sanctuary on the land of the Lenni Lenape Native Americans. We are so grateful to be together this morning. So I just want to take a moment, because I know what it's like to come in. So often when people walk through the doors, I have a list of things in my head, tasks I'm trying to get done, and I barely even say hello. So would you just take a moment, if you're on the chat, to say hello to one another, say where you're watching from, and if you are here, just turn to one another and wave and welcome one another. Good morning and welcome. If you are brand new, we invite you to come after the service to see one of our ushers. We'll give you a tour of the place that will lead you to our Beacon Cafe upstairs in the Bumba balcony. We hope everyone goes. There is a cup of hot coffee waiting for you. Mine is right here. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. I'm Missy Rogers, your worship associate today, she, her. Each time we gather together as Unitarian Universalists, we light a chalice, a symbol of our faith. As we light our chalice today, I invite you to arrive here, fully and unencumbered. And so to help with that, I'm going to ask you to repeat after me, either silently or aloud. I am here.
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 We are 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 here.
Being here matters. Being here matters.
Being here matters.
Being here matters.
Being here matters.
Good morning. My name is Misa Iwama. I'm the Director of Music Ministry up here in the loft. And this morning I'm joined by Norm Miller. Thank you for being here to sing with us. And as usual, John O'Neill on piano. And Will Cisco is doing the streaming today. And we're going to start by singing hymn number 1023. That is Building Bridges. And it's a round. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing it about 3 times through. Reverend Emily is going to help the people on her side of the room sing the main tune, and then the people on the other side of the room, where I see there are also some choir members, will do the round, but we'll start by singing it all together. And I know that no matter what happens, it's all going to work out fantastically as we sing this song, Building Bridges. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing. And here we go. Building bridges between our divisions, I read we could make such sweet harmony.
Good morning. My name is Jeannie Siegel, and I am a chaplain here at Beacon. Beacon chaplains extend the spiritual care of our community. And one of the rituals of that spiritual care is our community candle lighting, at which time we light candles of joy, of sorrow, and of gratitude. This morning we light a candle of healing, for Jessica Morse, the mother of Mia Morse, who had a blood clot and had to have surgery this week. I understand now she is going into rehabilitation, so she's doing well. This morning we also light a candle of hearing for the AAPI communities across the United States who are struggling with the violence, loss, and trauma. May all of us be in solidarity with their suffering. Also, a candle of justice in the face of rising police brutality against Black and brown bodies since the death of George Floyd in 2020, as we've seen in this month alone. Let us not be silent. With all that said, this has been a difficult week out there. Let us also remember and feel the gratitude and joy that we have in our own hearts and that we hold dear to us. So take a moment to think about that, the joy and the gratitude that you're feeling right now, and we light a candle in honor of that.
We're going to remain seated as we sing our next song, which is the Meditation on Breathing. In the Teal hymnal, it's number 1009. When I breathe in,
I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
When I breathe
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe
That is my go-to song when I can't sleep at night. Our reading comes from an essay called A Slower Urgency, written by Bayo Akomolafe, an author, speaker, and teacher who was born on the African continent and now lives in India. Here is an excerpt. I learned a long time ago about a particular saying from the continent I grew up on. The times are urgent. Let us slow down. The first time I heard this African saying, I knew that I had happened upon something important, something that needed to be shared at this time when the theme of urgency, the subject of the 11th hour, and the prospects of an apocalypse scenario, World War III, climate change disaster, Hadron Collider mishap, Trump, are all now familiar tropes in our conversations about the future. So everywhere I was invited to speak, I offered an invitation to slow down, which seems like the wrong thing to do when there's fire on the mountain. But here's the point. In hurrying up all the time, we often lose sight of the abundance of resources that might help us meet today's most challenging crises. We rush through into the same patterns we are used to. Of course, there isn't a single way to respond to crisis. There is no universally correct way. However, the call to slow down works to bring us face to face with the invisible, the hidden, the unremarked, the yet to be resolved. Sometimes what is the appropriate thing to do is not the effective thing to do. Slowing down is thus about lingering in the places we are not used to, seeking out new questions, becoming accountable to more than what rests on the surface, seeking roots. Slowing down is taking care of ghosts, hugging monsters, sharing silence, embracing the weird. If a humanist response to, say, the killing of whales or police violence urges us to do more and more to stop these phenomena, the call to slow down reminds us that we do not simply act upon the world we are in its ongoing actioning. The call to slow down reminds us that we do not simply act upon the world as if the world were external to our actions or as if we were external to it. We are the world in its ongoing actioning. As a result, we might come to examine our complicity in class issues and how the loss of immediate connections with the wilds renders us moderns more poor spokespeople for the well-being of the non-human. The world is going on together, a becoming together. This has vast implications for how we think about ourselves, others, and the world. Perhaps today's new openings in thought and action afford us an opportunity to build sanctuaries, places where people can feel safe and held, where a composting of ourselves can take place. Here ends our reading.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease us pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alejandro Polo, and also hello to everybody in the future who's watching this. And I'm glad to see you here today. I am here today to talk to you about a project that the congregation has had for a few years now, the Beacon Hope and Equity Center. I'm personally a member of the board of Beacon and also a member of the advisory committee to the center. Our congregation, Beacon, constantly receives requests for assistance because of emergencies that are going on around communities near to us. In 2019, a young organizer was facing immigration issues and wasn't able to secure proper legal representation. We were asked to see if we can help her in a way. But beyond that, the leaders at Beacon realized that there is a need to help people who have not been able to receive the proper support from the systems that continue to lead them into crisis, from poverty and systemic racism. Movements, organizers, and marginalized individuals are disproportionately impacted by the financial and legal systems that do not allow them to be provided with the proper support. Very little money is actually assigned for people in such issues as our young organizer that reached out to us in 2019. Or for people like teachers who are faced with issues, financial issues that are trying to be resolved by themselves rather than the system that should support them. Or elderly people who are getting evicted or dealing with food insecurity. The Beacon Hope and Equity pilot program was able to help the young organizer secure the adequate legal representation that she needed to stay, as well as continue to support her work as an organizer for her community. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, the funds to several organizations whose work directly impacts communities which were affected by the pandemic were not available to them, but Beacon Hope Center was able to assist on that space. The following year, there was a partnership created with the center with RIP medical debt, which led to a forgiveness of $2 million of medical debt across the state of New Jersey. When we think of the decolonizing wealth, it feels so massive, but the Beacon Hope and Equity Center has started a project with microgrants that make it possible to contribute in a very local way to what we otherwise feel like a massive endeavor. Through our partnerships with local organizations, we can ensure money reaches the right communities near to us. As an extension of the congregation, the Beacon Hope and Equity Center acts nimbly to serve the needs of communities near to us. We are an organization dedicated to establishing the establishment of an equity and the seeding of hope. Hope you are able to give generously to this organization as displayed today is dedicated to them. Thank you.
Would you please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our next hymn, which is 1010, We Give Thanks.
Oh, we give thanks
For this
precious day, for all gathered here,
and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Every day after school, the son of a well-known rabbi would enter his house, place his backpack on the table, and then head out through the back door to the woods that were just right outside their house. And the rabbi started to notice that it didn't just happen one day, it happened day after day after day, and the rabbi was growing concerned, wanted to know if all was well with his son. And so one day the rabbi approached his son when his son returned from the woods, saying, Are you okay? I noticed that you go outside into the woods, and I just need to know, are you okay? The son says, Oh, Papa, I'm fine. I'm actually going into the woods to pray. It is in the woods that I find God. Oh, the rabbi said, clearly relieved, and then said, But you should know, son, that God is found everywhere. And his son said, Yes, I know that God is found everywhere, but I am not the same everywhere. Right? Can I get an amen? All right. Do you all know what amen means? I know that we ask you this question from time to time, can I get an amen? And you are nice enough to oblige in the giving of the amen. But do you know what amen actually means? What's that? So be it. Well, yes, and there's a deeper meaning to it. Amen is actually an ancient Egyptian word. It's a little bit like Lizzo's sheesh, right? And it means the ground of being, the ground of being. So when we respond with an amen to something we've heard, it expresses that what we've heard is connected to a truth or an experience we have known, like the earth supporting us, like the earth is supporting us, the ground of our being. So when I say, can I get an amen? What I'm saying is, does what I just said connect with who you are and where you are? You might not say amen, and that's okay. But it's important to know when I say, can I get an amen, what you're saying amen to. Throughout this morning's service, I'm going to ask you, can I get an amen? And that goes for you people online too. I expect you to answer in some way. If what I've said resonates, if it connects, by all means say amen. But if not, that's okay too. It would be a very boring world if we all just agreed with one another, right? If we all had the same experience. So returning to our story of the rabbi and his son, the son teaches his father a lesson. Teaches him a lesson that God may be the same everywhere, but we are not the same everywhere. There is such a thing as sacred space and sacred time, and when we enter it, it opens us up to a divinity within and a divinity without. It helps us find our center, the theme of our month, find our center. It may be available to us in all spaces and times, but some spaces and times don't work for us. I'm just going to tell you right now, before the service, in the frenetic call of, hey, I'm out sick today, I could not find divinity or my center in those moments. I was not the same everywhere. I wonder how many of us live our lives like the boy. How many of you, at the end of a day, enter your home, put your stuff down, and then head out into the woods, head out into your sacred place? Any hands out there? No. Do you know what you're doing? You come home to an entire task list that is just as big as the list that you left behind at work. And so therefore, you're moving from one thing to the next. Someone recently shared with me, almost in a whisper, as if they didn't want anyone else to hear, I miss the slowness of time in that first year of the pandemic. Is that wrong of me to miss it? It feels like we're back to breakneck speed. I've said it once, and I'll say it again, the wisdom of Peter Drucker, that famous management consultant. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Even with the best of intentions coming out of the pandemic to live at a slower pace, America's dominant culture takes pride in its fast-paced urgency. That culture ate every intention for breakfast. My grandmother, I've told you all this many, many times, my grandmother has a framed cross stitch that says, to rest is to rust. She lives by that. She's 93, still working 2 jobs. I love it, but to rest is to rust. We can sleep when we're dead. Welcome to grind culture, says Tricia Hersey. Tricia Hersey is a performance artist, an activist, a theologian, and probably the most important, a daydreamer. A daydreamer. How many of you in your life were daydreaming and told to snap out of it and get focused, especially as a young kid? Don't daydream, focus. I love the people who didn't raise their hands. That's the sort of childhood we should be having. Tricia Hersey calls herself the Nap Bishop. And her ministry, as you might have guessed, is called the Nap Ministry. But let me warn you, it's not just about naps, okay? It's not about self-care. Podcaster Glennon Doyle rightly commented that calling Tricia Hersey's ministry a nap ministry is a little like calling Jesus' work a walking ministry. There might be a little bit more to it, right? So when people enter Tricia's nap retreats, they are often surprised. They think they've come to nap so they can return to grind culture well-rested. What people aren't expecting, Tricia says, is that she is calling you to resist grind culture full stop. She not only hands you a blanket so you can take a nap, she also hands you a metaphorical flamethrower so that you can burn the culture of grind to the ground. Rest, she says, is in fact resistance. And she's calling all of us to join together and resist. The times are urgent. Let us slow down. Imagine a world where naps are essential to human flourishing. Can you see it? Can I get an amen? The Nap Bishop says rest is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. Both of these toxic systems refuse to see the inherent divinity of human beings, not to mention the planet, and have used human bodies, especially black and brown bodies, as a tool of production, evil, and violence for centuries. Grind culture has made us, all of us, human machines, willing and ready to donate our lives to a capitalist system that thrives by placing profit over people and profit over the planet. Have any of you heard the news about cargo ships that are steaming right through whale habitats and feeding grounds in their major thoroughfares? Have you heard this story? Whales, like the endangered blue whales living off the southern tip of Sri Lanka, live there, and they are getting killed by the cargo ships as the cargo ships come through to deliver their goods to wherever they are going. An organization called Whale Safe has been asking large cargo ships not to stop going through that area, but to slow down. to slow down to 10 knots when traveling through the whale territory. They've been asking them to do it since 2014. And WhaleSafe actually listens. They use buoys, buoys that listen for and identify the songs of whales. That's how they know that they're in the area. They are listening for the songs. And whenever they hear the songs, they send a message up into space and down to the cargo ships to say, slow down. The whales are there. Be careful. Be mindful. In 2019, before the system's launch in Santa Barbara, California, 46% of vessels slowed down voluntarily in speed reduction zones. But with the new system of buoys in place, the percentage has risen to 60% in 2022. Another organization is getting involved called Protecting Blue Whales and Blue Skies, and it actually pays shipping companies to slow down for the whales. It gives them incentive. The times are urgent. Let us slow down. Imagine a world where we are paid to slow down. Can I get an amen? The rest is resistance movement, says the Nat Bishop, is a connection and a path back to our true nature. We are stripped down to who we really were before the terrorism of capitalism and white supremacy, she says. That's when we learn that we are enough. That's when we claim our divinity. God might be everywhere, but it's nearly impossible to find our center in grind culture. The rabbi's son goes to the woods to find a center because he knows that that dominant culture that he just came home from is going to stop him from experiencing divinity everywhere. And so his trip to the woods is an act of finding his center. It's also one of resistance. On Sunday, our junior high class gathered to watch The Twilight Zone, the old Twilight Zone. Did you know that 13 and 14-year-olds would actually sit and watch a black and white television show? I was surprised. I have to tell you, I think it all centers on the snacks. Jermaine keeps us in good supply of snacks, so we gather around a television and we watch a black and white television show. It's amazing. So we watched on Sunday the Twilight Zone episode called The Obsolete Man. It is set in the future, not the one that will be, but the one that could be, as the host Rod Serling tells us. We enter a scene where a man is put on trial for being obsolete, no longer productive, no longer worthy. You see, in the future, the state has banned books, and the man is a librarian. So he is now obsolete, no longer needed. And so, if found guilty of being obsolete, the librarian will be put to death because he now has no value. In his youth, he had actually been a carpenter, and the trial said if you had continued to produce furniture, that would have been valuable to the state. You would still be alive. But the librarian chooses to resist. His method of resistance? Reading a book. At the end of the show, the host, Rod Serling, does something unexpected. Normally at the end of the show, he doesn't return on screen, but this time he does. He reappears on the show to give the moral, saying, any state, any entity, any ideology which fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of human beings, that state is obsolete. You might recognize those words, inherent worth and dignity, as they are the Unitarian Universalist first principle. We Unitarian Universalists affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of each human being. Rod Serling, the host, was a member of the Santa Monica congregation, right? And he wrote that episode in 1961, the same year that Unitarian Universalists voted to create and live by that first principle. Tricia Hersey calls us to view grind culture through a similar lens as Rod Serling. This dominant culture, grounded in capitalism and white supremacy, does not recognize the worth and dignity of neither human beings nor the planet. She calls on us, saying the times are urgent. Let us slow down. Imagine a world in which you are worthy not for how much you can produce, but for being alive. You're valued, period. Can I get an amen? I want to know how many of us are exhausted. I'm impressed that everybody that I can see right now is actually still awake. Good job, everybody. But how many of us are facing an even more exhausting week? How ironic that we have lived with a deadly virus for 3 years that has attempted to teach us to take our exhaustion seriously. We didn't listen because culture eats strategy for breakfast. In the last 2 years, in the last 2 weeks, both of my teenagers have had a virus. Not COVID, just your typical common winter virus. As my eldest got ready for school, she shared with me her symptoms: sore throat, aches and fatigue, no fever. We tested her for COVID, negative. I said, "I'm sorry, I think you should stay home." And she responded, I can't. I just got too much to do. And I countered, if you had COVID, you would be at home for 5 days, full stop. And so then I asked her, let me say, if you didn't have so much work on your shoulders right now, would you stay home? And she said, you could actually see her body deflate as she considered it. And she said, yes, I would gladly stay home. I feel awful. She ended up staying home, and she slept that day for 6 straight hours. I texted her when she woke up from work, and I said, I guess it's good you didn't go to school today. And she responded, yeah, tell that to my math homework. Right? We aren't allowed to be sick because the work never stops. The pace is unrelenting, and if we don't do the work, we can't catch up. That then requires someone else, our coworkers, our partners, to add more work to workloads that are unsustainable. Grind culture, says the Nat Bishop, keeps us exhausted, and we're addicted to it. If I told all of you that your practice for this week is that you have to get 8 hours minimum of sleep each night, you would throw a fit. I know this because I've been playing around with this idea for the last couple of months since Tricia Hersey's book came out. Can you get a week of 8 hours of sleep a night? People are like, no, I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get it all done. Beloveds, that's the point. There's too much to get done. Tricia Hersey actually says it requires her to say no to so many things because she can't get it all done, and she won't give her body or her spirit to grind culture. She says that keeping us exhausted is intentional because if we're exhausted, we won't have the ability to dream new possibilities for ourselves or our planet. We're just too tired. It keeps us in a state of despair. One of the tenets of Hersey's nap ministry is that naps are a portal to our imagination. The seeds of our future exist right there in our imagination, and when we nap, we are connected to our dream space. Grind culture steals that from us. Just remember, oppression was a thing that was imagined. Liberation can be imagined too. But it will require us to take our imaginations back. It will require us to slow down. You could even hear Missy in the reading. There were points where she had to slow down to get the words out. We have to slow down. And so let's begin right now. Right here at the point in the sermon where so often people start to fade. So I invite you to sit in your chair with your back upright. Place your feet firmly on the ground. Give a good stretch like Erica just did. Or for those of you at home, it's a little hard to do here in the sanctuary. For those of you at home, you can recline in a chair, in a bed, on a couch, on a hammock. I can't see you, so no worries. But I'd like for you just to sit in your chair for a moment. Scan your body and recognize any tension that is there. Breathe deep. I'm going to invite you again to breathe deeply. Imagine a world without limits. Imagine a world without oppression. Imagine a world of liberation. And if that's too big, too massive, imagine a world where common people can come to a congregation and ask for a microloan. Imagine a world where whales swim free without risk of harm. Imagine a world where 8 hours of sleep a night is normal. Inhale deeply from your own belly and hold it for 4 seconds. Ready? And now exhale. I invite you to open your eyes. And now I say to you, you have to repeat that several times daily, your act of resistance. Lady Nancy Ambrose was the grandmother of the prophetic mystic Howard Thurman. She was born a slave. As a little girl, there was a white preacher, and that preacher would come to the plantation and would deliver a sermon or a message to her community that day. The plantation owner allowed this. And one day, the preacher did something he had never done before. He looked right at them, and he said, "You might not remember this sermon. You might not remember anything that Jesus said or did. But if you remember one thing and one thing only, I want you to remember this. You are not a slave. You are a child of God." Lady Nancy Ambrose never forgot his words. That day, he liberated her. She didn't know that she was anything more than just a slave. He liberated her. That small act. And she never forgot it. No one could ever take that away from her. Her grandson went on to meet Mahatma Gandhi, the guru of nonviolent resistance. And Gandhi taught Thurman to resist small acts of evil. Don't begin with the big evil of the world. Start small. Resist those small acts and work your way up to the bigger ones. Howard Thurman returned home to the United States, and his small act of resistance was to teach folks, especially Americans, with their backs against the wall, as he said. That was his phrase. People with your backs against the wall, the marginalized, people of color, the poor. He taught them how to establish a sense of what he called inherent worth and dignity, and to live from that place. Thurman was following in the footsteps of that preacher and his grandmother. If the dignity of a person can be restored, he said, if a person can claim their worth, he says, it stabilizes the ego, it increases self-esteem, and it gives people the courage, the audacity to question oppression. And do you know how he did this? Do you remember from 2 weeks ago, for those of you who were here? He taught people how to be silent. Silent, not unlike a nap, to sit in silence. It was such a small act, and it is. But the writer Maggie Smith reminds us to remember geologic time, how the slightest shifts imperceptibly daily carve out canyons and make mountains. We have to trust that our small acts of resistance, like a nap, are making progress even if we can't see it. The times are urgent. Let us slow down. I want you to imagine living from your center every day, putting your stuff down at the end of the day and heading out into the woods or wherever your sacred spot is. I want you to imagine what it would feel like to claim your worth every day. I want you to imagine what it would be like to have your dignity restored. Beloveds, can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? I want you to feel it. Because if we can do that, no one can ever take that from us. Rest is resistance, beloved. I've decided to follow in my grandmother's footsteps. I am learning how to cross-stitch really badly, but cross-stitch. I'm making a gift for my grandchildren. One day I will frame it and I will give it to them, and it will say, to rest is to resist. But I dare say that they won't need my cross-stitch, because I, their grandmother, and we, their ancestors, will have lived it into being. Amen. May this be the ground of our being.
Thank you, Reverend Emily. We're going to finish by singing Hush, which is 1040 in your hymnal. And in the spirit that sometimes singing is also resistance, I invite you to stand and join in singing. It's 1040. We're going to do 3 verses. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? It sounds like freedom. It's like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like justice. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Would you take hands with the people around you? And if you're watching online, just put your hands on your heart or reach out to the people that are with you. Maybe put your hand on your pet's little burrow, a little forehead. Oh my Lord, what shall we do this week? There's only one thing to do. Rest. We've got a lot of resisting to do. Amen.